Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, let's explore together how to find balance when we feel like we're being too serious all the time. Do you ever find yourself setting impossibly high standards for everything you do? Maybe you feel guilty when you're not being productive, or you struggle to enjoy simple pleasures because your mind is always focused on what needs to be perfect. If you feel burdened by your own seriousness and find it difficult to relax or be spontaneous, please know that you're not alone in feeling this way. Many people experience this challenge, especially those with naturally conscientious personalities. Today, we'll look at what recent scientific research tells us about this experience, and we'll explore some gentle, evidence-based approaches that might help you find a healthier balance while still honoring your naturally thoughtful nature. The scientific community has been making remarkable discoveries about what happens in our brains when we hold ourselves to very high standards. Let me share some of these fascinating findings with you. Recent research published in a psychological journal in 2025 examined how perfectionism affects our mental health. The study looked at 467 university students and found something quite interesting about the different types of perfectionism. The researchers discovered that there are actually two main dimensions to consider, what they called high standards perfectionism and discrepancy perfectionism. High standards perfectionism involves setting ambitious goals for yourself, which can actually be motivating and helpful in many situations. However, discrepancy perfectionism, which is the gap between what we expect of ourselves and what we actually achieve, was found to correlate strongly with feelings of depression, anxiety, and reduced satisfaction with life. What's particularly fascinating is what brain imaging technology has revealed about how perfectionist thinking affects our neural activity. Researchers using functional MRI scanners have been able to see what happens inside the brains of people with perfectionist tendencies when they make mistakes. The studies showed that individuals with higher perfectionist standards demonstrated increased neural activity in an area called the medial frontal gyrus, which includes a region known as the anterior cingulate cortex. This area becomes highly activated when perfectionists process errors or imperfections. Essentially, this means that the brains of people with perfectionist tendencies work much harder when processing mistakes, which can lead to mental exhaustion and increasingly rigid thinking patterns over time. A comprehensive analysis examining perfectionism across many different groups of people found something quite important. The research identified two key components, perfectionistic striving and perfectionistic concern. Perfectionistic striving is associated with higher self-determination and more positive outcomes in life. However, perfectionistic concern, which involves worry about making mistakes and disappointing others, was linked to significantly more psychological distress. Perhaps most concerning, the research revealed that perfectionistic concern is associated with more serious mental health challenges, including increased suicidal thinking, depression, eating disorders, and even impacts on physical health and longevity. This challenges the common assumption that any form of perfectionism might be beneficial. Large-scale studies have also shown us that conscientiousness, while generally a positive trait, can paradoxically increase anxiety and stress when taken to extremes. This happens because when our expectations consistently go unmet, our stress response system becomes overactive. Brain imaging research has provided additional insights, showing that individuals with very rigid thinking patterns exhibit decreased activity in areas of the brain associated with cognitive flexibility. Specifically, certain regions of the prefrontal cortex, which are responsible for adaptive decision-making and mental flexibility, show reduced activation in people who think in very rigid, all-or-nothing ways. Recent research from 2023 looking at personality patterns found that rigid, systematic behavioral patterns can be effectively addressed through specific therapeutic approaches. These interventions specifically target the underlying cognitive inflexibility that drives excessive seriousness and the inability to be spontaneous or relaxed. Now that we understand what the science tells us, let's explore some practical approaches that research suggests might be helpful. Please remember that these are suggestions for your consideration, and what works for one person might not work for another. The first approach involves something researchers call cognitive flexibility training. This is a gentle way to help your brain become more comfortable with small imperfections. You might start with a daily 10-minute exercise where you deliberately introduce tiny, harmless imperfections into routine tasks. For example, you might choose to leave one dish unwashed after cleaning the kitchen, or you might send a casual email with a very minor typo that doesn't affect the meaning. You could try wearing slightly mismatched socks, or taking a slightly different route to work. The key is to start with situations that have absolutely no real-world consequences. This approach is based on neuroplasticity research, which shows that our brains can develop new patterns of response. By gradually exposing yourself to small imperfections in safe situations, you're essentially helping to rewire your brain's error detection systems. Over time, this can reduce the hyperactivation in the anterior cingulate cortex that creates anxiety around imperfection. The second approach focuses on what researchers call distinguishing between perfectionistic striving and perfectionistic concern. This involves developing awareness of the difference between healthy standards that motivate growth versus self-defeating expectations that create anxiety. When you're setting goals or standards for yourself, you might try asking, is this standard motivating me toward positive growth, or is it creating anxiety about potential failure? Research suggests that adaptive standards focus on your personal progress rather than comparing yourself to others or trying to meet impossible ideals. Many people find it helpful to implement what some researchers call the good enough principle for about 80% of daily tasks, while reserving their perfectionist energy for the 20% of activities that truly align with their core values and most important objectives. The third approach involves developing emotional regulation through self-compassion. Research has shown that self-compassion practices can significantly reduce perfectionistic concerns while actually maintaining healthy motivation for achievement. When you notice self-critical thoughts arising, you might try pausing and asking yourself, what would I say to a good friend who was in this same situation? Often, we're much kinder to others than we are to ourselves. Try speaking to yourself with the same compassion you would naturally show to someone you care about. Neuroscience research has demonstrated that self-compassion practices activate what's called the brain's caregiving system, which can reduce stress hormones like cortisol while activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes relaxation and healing. The fourth approach might seem paradoxical, but research suggests it can be quite effective. It involves what some people call scheduled spontaneity. This means deliberately planning time for unplanned activities. You might try scheduling 30-minute blocks in your day that you call spontaneity time, where you engage in activities without predetermined outcomes. This could include taking a walk without deciding on a destination beforehand, spending time doodling or creating art without a specific goal, or having conversations without an agenda. This practice helps strengthen neural pathways associated with flexibility and reduces your brain's dependency on rigid control structures. It's a gentle way to practice being comfortable with uncertainty and unpredictability. The fifth approach involves what researchers call mindful imperfection exposure. This is a very gradual way to help yourself become more comfortable with imperfect situations. The key is to start very small and in situations that feel safe. You might begin by intentionally making very minor mistakes in low-pressure environments. For example, you might mispronounce a word during a casual conversation with someone close to you, or you might arrive 5 minutes late to a non-critical social meeting, or you might choose to leave your bed unmade one morning. The goal is to monitor your anxiety levels and practice breathing techniques or other calming strategies to remain peaceful during these moments. This approach, supported by behavioral research, gradually helps your brain's threat detection system become less sensitive to imperfection. The sixth approach involves creating what some people call a values-based priority matrix. This means creating a visual way to organize your activities based on how well they align with your core values versus how much perfectionist energy they require. You might try placing your activities into 4 categories: high value with low perfectionist demand, high value with high perfectionist demand, low value with low perfectionist demand, and low value with high perfectionist demand. The idea is to focus your perfectionist energy primarily on activities that are both high value and genuinely benefit from careful attention, while consciously relaxing your standards for activities that don't align as closely with what matters most to you. Let me summarize the key points we've discussed today, as these will also appear on your screen for easy reference. First, perfectionist brains show hyperactivation in error detection regions, which helps explain why mistakes can feel so distressing for people with perfectionist tendencies. Understanding this can help you recognize that your brain is simply working very hard, not that you're doing anything wrong. Second, self-compassion research shows that being kind to yourself actually reduces stress hormones while maintaining healthy motivation. You don't need to be harsh with yourself to stay motivated. Third, applying a good enough approach to about 80% of your tasks can help save mental energy for the activities that truly matter most to you. Fourth, scheduled spontaneity helps build cognitive flexibility by creating safe opportunities to practice being comfortable with unpredictability. Fifth, organizing your priorities based on your core values can help prevent perfectionist energy from being wasted on activities that don't truly serve your most important goals. Sixth, practicing small imperfections daily in safe environments can gradually help rewire your brain's anxiety response patterns around mistakes and imperfection. Your conscientiousness and naturally high standards are genuine strengths that, when channeled thoughtfully, can lead to meaningful achievements without compromising your well-being. The research shows that it's possible to maintain excellence in areas that truly matter to you while releasing the exhausting burden of perfectionism in areas that don't align with your core values. You have the capacity to transform your relationship with seriousness into a more balanced, sustainable approach to achievement that includes space for joy, spontaneity, and self-compassion. Change often happens gradually, and being patient with yourself during this process is part of the journey. If today's discussion provided any support or insight, please consider hitting the like button. If you'd like to continue learning about mental health and well-being together, we'd be honored to have you subscribe to our channel. May your hearts feel a little lighter, and remember that you deserve the same kindness you so readily give to others. Thank you for listening until the end today, and we'll see you in the next video.